All In Sports Network. We love sports.
How's it going, everybody? Ben Peck here, All In Aggies. I took a moment. I've taken some time, still trying to process a wild swing of emotions from what we saw. Texas A&M falls to Auburn 43-41 in, what was it, quadruple overtime? Quadruple overtime. A drop at the end in the end zone. You've all seen it by now. We're going to get into some thoughts. I don't have anything up other than my raw emotions. I've got a box score on ESPN, and I'm just going to kind of take you through my thoughts on this game. If you haven't already, by the way, subscribe to the channel, help us out, try to make this the best Aggie platform we can, cover all the sports on campus. So 43-41, big picture takeaway. In a weird way, this game, because of all the chaos we saw, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but A&M is still basically where they're at going into Texas, where they were before this week. If they beat Texas, they'll be in the SEC championship game. And if you win the SEC, they're not leaving the champion out. Now, maybe the only difference is there's a world where you make it to the SEC championship game, you win these two games, and then you could lose in that championship game. And with the chaos we saw from today, you'd be still in the playoff, even with 3 losses. Now you got to win out. So in that sense, it's different. But based on what you expected coming into this week, it's still largely the same position you thought A&M would be in. And I think this game will serve A&M's benefit in the long run, and maybe even in the short term. One thing that we talked about on this show that we had not seen from A&M that we wanted to, just in terms of if we're getting nitpicky, checking all the boxes, this is when things were great. You know, you beat Mizzou, you beat LSU, you're riding this big win streak. We said going into South Carolina, we haven't seen this team backed up against the wall on the road and how they handled that situation. Regardless of how the overtime period ended, you were down 21-0 with a redshirt freshman quarterback and rallied all the way back to take the lead in the fourth quarter, have them backed up 4th and 2 in their own territory, chance to win the game. Couldn't close it out. But I think that says a lot about the team, the culture, where the program is heading. And I think 8-4, not necessarily, if that's what happens next week, would not have been the season at the beginning of the year. I would have said change people's perspective on A&M. And I know this loss will have people saying, oh, that's the same old A&M we've always seen. But the fact that they're still in it on the last week of the regular season to get to the SEC championship and to make the college football playoff, and they're far from alone in terms of having these types of games. I do think A&M, especially with a first-year head coach, has laid a foundation that they'll be able to build on down the road. But, man, this one hurts. You thought they had it. Want to just kind of game recap, go through it. You got the drive chart pulled up here. First drive, and I'm not going to go through every little detail, but, you know, couldn't really stop them on the first drive. You missed the field goal. On your first offensive drive. By the way, that was one thing that stood out to me with the way things were going in the first half. Three of the four drives that A&M had were the first 3 drives were all productive drives in terms of moving the ball, at least 39, 50, 75 yards. Now, one of them, the missed field goal, you had the interception in the red. I don't know if they were in the red zone at that point, but close to the red zone at least. And then you had just outside the red zone, then you had the touchdown. So weirdly, even though A&M fell behind 21-0 before their touchdown, I still felt relatively okay about their chances to come back in this game if the offense was still able to move the ball well, and if you kind of got to see a little bit of the Auburn offense we saw last year, especially the Peyton Thorne we saw last year at Kyle Field, where he was ineffective, and just the passing game at large. Ineffective, turned the ball over a little bit, and giving you an opportunity getting sacked. And we did start to see that. Must be said, Cam Coleman, absolute killer. To have him in the boat for as long as you did in that recruiting class. And I know basically his recruitment was a casualty of the Jimbo firing, which hurts now, but in the long run, I think will it'll either it won't hinge on Cam Coleman whether that was the right decision or not. But yes, in the short term for this game and maybe the next few years, tough. He was an absolute problem for them, but all their receivers by and large as well. I think Trey Ratcliffe had a tough night out there. Des Ricks, got beat. Marcus Ratcliffe, excuse me. Marcus Ratcliffe had a tough night out there. I was thinking Trey Jones. Des Ricks, tough on the one touchdown. Willie got caught on the floater. So plenty of blame to go around. I'm not here to try to put people's heads on a stick, but I do think the hunch that we've had that they need to improve their secondary to have elite level guys is still there. I don't think you have glaring liabilities out there, but when you go up against the cream of the crop level talent like Keandre Lambert-Smith, like Cam Coleman, I think that's where you start to get exposed a little bit. And A&M did in this game, especially early on. But then after, you miss the field goal, you give up the big touchdown. By the way, also, we're seeing A&M jumping off sides a couple times. One time it cost them and basically set up that first touchdown. One time later in the game, it didn't bite them, but it could have. So got to get that cleaned up. And then just early on, and even there was a drive, I think it was like right before the half or maybe first drive out of the second half. Just seeing Marcel Reed miss some of these, they talked about it on the broadcast, miss some of these intermediate passing throws and the accuracy. One thing I noticed with him when he struggles with that accuracy, it's like he actually did a good job of this on the ball to Amari in overtime. Like if he sees a window closing, he gets it there and puts a lot of zip on it, which, I get it. It's a tight window, but, I don't know I feel like there's still some work they have to do with the receivers to get them on the same page in terms of like, what are they able to handle with the speed? Because it seemed like some of this was like the interception, he put so much on it that it sailed on him. And there was a couple where he threw that the receivers were not able to handle. And again, I'm not putting the throw to Amari in that boat. That was pretty comfortable, I think. But just some of the minor points, I think you remember too. And I would say this to, Michigan fans or LSU fans with like the whole Bryce Underwood thing or even, I know he's exceptional, but like Julian Lewis, Colorado, we see Dylan Raiola a little up and down at times. Like you see the flashes of, a top quarterback prospect, but even for those guys, it takes a little time to perfect their craft. So Marcel Reed, with where he's at in his second season, he has up to 3 more years of eligibility available to him. And I think where he's at, he will be a very good player and a very good asset. He already is. But I think he will really elevate his game in the seasons to come. But there are some growing pains right now. And I think we need to be honest about that. That's something I think coming into the year you would have expected, like Connor Wigman has gone through that process and he would maybe be playing at the consistent level that we see from Marcel Reed when he's on his A game or Connor Wigman when he's on his A game. I think you would have expected that level of quarterback play to this point, but just not there at the moment. A&M responds nicely. How about Terry Bussey filling in, stepping up? Cyrus Allen out, Le'Veon Moss has been out, but Le'Veon Moss, Reuben Owens out. Bussey filling in. Had the 4th down reach, or I guess it was 3rd down, the reach over. I always get nervous when players do that toward the goal line or they dive by the pylon. They do that extra little lift. I get on 4th down, nothing to lose, but on 3rd down, a little nervous there, but good for him. It's one of those, like, if you're crossing the street and there's a car coming, you better make it if you do that. And he did, so give him credit for that. Didn't capitalize on the end of the first half. Had an opportunity there to maybe squeak out another 3 points at least. But got the ball back, went down the field, touchdown, got back in the game, got some stops. One stop, and then Noah Thomas gone, 75 yards on the slant. So I thought there we started to see the Marcel Reed kind of turn around. Another thing I noticed too with their pass rush felt like to me, tell me if y'all agree, it felt like there was a lot of plays tonight where Marcel, I don't know what his longest rush of the game. Again, if you're just watching, I haven't. I'm kind of just going off after just a brief amount of time what I remember about this game. 15-yard run was his longest. I'm just kind of going off memory is what I was trying to say. But felt like he never really had that huge breakout run, and felt like there were a lot of runs that were just on the verge of being able to be big-time plays that felt like he was getting tracked down from behind a lot, like just nicked up a little bit. Not like chased down, but like he was about to leak out and go, and then they'd get him for a 1-2 yard gain or a 1 yard loss, something like that. And then, we did see, I think after the game was tied, if I'm not mistaken, it was that drive, one of those drives we saw that didn't result in points. We had the crosser, I think to Noah Thomas, was it? Had a lot of room to run and weren't able to convert. And I think that drive stalled out in a punt, if I'm not mistaken. So again, just things like that, little things, little things that go a long way that were impactful. And looking here, Keandre Lambert-Smith, the big catch after you got a missed field goal from them. Remember, you had a missed field goal from Randy Bond earlier. You stomach the drive, missed field goal, couldn't capitalize, 3 and out. You give the ball back to them. They get the big play to Keandre Lambert-Smith, and I think that was a bad tackling job, if I'm not mistaken, from Radcliffe again. I think he missed on a tackle there. Again, this isn't like to put any one of those secondary guys on blast. I didn't think maybe Radcliffe had a tough night, but just in general, I think it's good. But again, against that cream of the crop, it needs to get a little bit better. Same with the wide receivers, by the way, against the elite corners. I don't know that Auburn is at that level, and I don't think the receivers played poorly tonight for A&M. I think they all played fine, but it would be nice to have a game changer level talent like Cam Coleman. I know I'm stating the obvious, but it's just one little wrinkle that would do wonders for this team and be disproportionately effective in terms of raising the ceiling of this team if they had something like that. But then you get to the fourth quarter, and I was tweeting out, is Peyton Thorne going? Is the Peyton Thorne we're used to seeing starting to show up now? And I do think there was that little phase where we saw the old Peyton Thorne throwing the ball to the other team, making bad decisions, either not seeing the field or not processing the field. Again, I'm going off first look and haven't seen all the angles of if some of these sacks there were all, coverage sacks or whatever, but either way, not able to get out of the pocket until the end. But we had that stretch where Peyton Thorne kind of looked like he did a little bit last year against A&M, a little shaky. Weren't able to capitalize on the interception in the red zone with a touchdown, only a field goal on that. That felt like that was going to be big at the time. And then you went for it on fourth down. Would have been a long field goal. With 10 minutes left, they go for it, 4th and 6 at the 41-yard line. Would have been a long field goal. I wouldn't have minded it because that would have put you down by 1. It would have had the ball at their 41-yard line. Randy Bond, if he tells you he's got the leg, now I don't know. Maybe he said, I don't have that tonight. But and I know he missed a long one earlier, but if you think he has it, I do think the defense was playing well enough that you could bank on getting another stop from them. And you end up, we literally saw what happened because incomplete pass, and then they get the ball where they would have gotten it off the missed field goal, and they'd go 3 and out. So I think proven right in that theory. So I wouldn't have minded going for the long field goal in that case. And then you go down the field and long touchdown drive with Amari Daniels, by the way. Phenomenal on the actual go-ahead touchdown run. So, listen, I know Amari's getting a lot of hate right now. I don't know how much of it's coming from Aggies, but for anyone who is, just remember, and I tweeted this, but A&M is not in this game or where they're at without Amari Daniels, period. In this game especially. 27 carries for 90 yards and a touchdown. Marcel Reed, 21 carries. After that, 3 from Terry Bussey, 1 from Jabri Barber. Emmett Smith, EJ Smith played, didn't have any carries, but he has a lot on his plate. And I think given what he's had, he's been doing everything you could have asked. Then you force a 3-and-out after the go-ahead touchdown. That is where it felt like A&M was about to take control. That is the next thing you want to see. The first thing is, how are they going to respond backed up against the wall? Can they get back in a game? They did that. Second thing is, can they go, do they have that killer instinct on the road in the tight game? Haven't seen them need to have that yet, but had a chance on that drive. Didn't do it. You dropped the ball on the first play of the drive. Brutal. That being said, gave yourself a manageable situation. 3rd and 13. Now, I was saying this to a friend. We were watching this game together. 2nd and 17 by that point, and they have all 3 timeouts. For me, I'm okay. Or I guess 2nd 17, they had burned their timeout after the first down play. 2nd 17, 2:52 left, 2 timeouts for Auburn. In my mind, only up a field goal, they have plenty of time to get the ball, even with no timeouts. I mean, I think I was proven right, literally, because that's what happened. They're going to have plenty of time to get down the field and get at least a field goal. Maybe the extra time gives them more wiggle room to try to go for a touchdown, but they're going to have enough time to get the field goal anyway. I would have liked to see a little more aggressive play calling, 2nd and 17, and especially 3rd and 13. Be careful. Don't turn the ball over, but knowing that a first down is probably game over, and I know Amari kind of had a hole that maybe kind of got around the outside, maybe could have got there with just like one better cut or whatever, but I don't love the idea of kind of packing it up and playing for a stop. Now, granted, I know your defense is playing great at that point, but I wouldn't have minded at least one pass there. But that's maybe nitpicky. And then you go to the drive of the game for Auburn. Peyton Thorne, listen, I kind of gave him a hard time. He's turned the ball over, takes sacks, but came up huge. That run turned it around, and they're down a kicker. So a field goal was not a guarantee even after he got that first down, got him down to 37. And then, from there, Jarquez Hunter on the outside had that 3rd and 6 where they drop everyone back. They get Hunter in the backfield. He barely gets the first down. That's 4th and inches or 4th and 1. That might be a little dicey to kick that field goal with that kicker from what we knew at that point. So maybe get a stop there. Then they go down, they finish it off. Big, I mean, you got to give defense credit, came up big in the red zone. So give them that. And then overtime, first drive was beautiful to watch for A&M. Second drive for Auburn. This is where they had the pass interference in the end zone. Javon Thomas on Cam Coleman. Again, it's just what a guy like Cam Coleman does, the problems he presents. Come up big on the second overtime. I think A&M fortunate to get the pass interference call. Do not think that was a good call, but they take advantage of it. They make them make a long field goal, and they do. And then A&M basically 3 straight runs, and did not. Another thing I did not love there. They got the 1st and 20 pass play to get them back into it, 14-yard game. But that's what I'm saying, 14-yard game on 1st and 20. Now you're 2nd and 6. I don't mind Aaron for 2nd or 3rd down, but I just thought that felt way too conservative for me. And then I'm trying to remember what overtime. First play was this does not have the play-by-play for the triple overtime play, but I think they had to roll out, pass incomplete. They get their touchdown, the crazy catch from Keandre Lambert-Smith. You almost felt like that was one of those where once he made that play and you're backed up against it, you're like, that was one of those plays where you're like, it's their night, man. Like they're feeling good. They got that juju going in the stadium. It's going to be really tough for the Aggies to come out on top in this one. And then Amari on the rollout. I'll be honest, my heart stopped a little bit when I saw Terry Bussey going out there in the Wildcat. I thought we were getting a little too cute there, as if you're A&M. But I like the play design. Give it back to Marcel. I wanted to see Marcel use his legs, which we didn't really see in overtime until the 3rd and 6, like short side speed option kind of thing. I wanted a play where he could sit in the pocket, he could make space, he could extend the play, he could run, he could throw. We didn't really see that until that play, and it worked out up until the very end. No ways around it. Obviously, you got to make that catch. But again, I think Amari didn't. If you're going to put it all in that one play, I think there's a lot more leading up to that, especially in the first quarter, that I would point to as why A&M was in that position and why they lost that game. Now, that happens, devastating. Then we wait out around a little bit. We come to find out, because of the chaos in Gainesville, because of the chaos in Norman, it is guaranteed the winner of Texas A&M will be going to the SEC championship game. I don't love it for the sport, to be honest. I think 8 would have been plenty for playoff expansion. But even in 8, I don't know if a 3-loss SEC champion gets in. Maybe this year. If you don't have any auto bids, I think they probably do in the 8-team format, if that were the case. But this felt like a game that was devastating, and I liked that about in terms of the health of the game. Like, I liked that you were on the edge of your seat watching this game, feeling like everything was on the line. And now you kind of get to shrug your shoulders and say, okay, well, whatever. Again, maybe we have a little flexibility to lose in Atlanta, or we don't have that flexibility. But basically, if we had to win out to get in anyway, not only will they do that, they'll get a top 4 seed. So, in all likelihood. So, but yeah, tough to stomach either way. Again, top line takeaways. I think, you've got an awesome piece to build around with Marcel Reed. He's not all the way there. We know that. He's got things to clean up, but by and large, he can be the guy for an elite Texas A&M team. I think the offensive line is okay in terms of the health for them moving forward, the long-term outlook for them. I think you need help at receiver. You're going to have to reload on the D-line just to replace the really good production you're going to lose there. I don't know off the top of my head, like Nick Scorton and the Shamars, Turner and Stewart are probably all going to be gone. But beyond that, I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head everybody. Regis, I think. So you're going to have a lot of holes to fill there. Linebackers, feel good about the linebackers. And secondary, again, I think there's pieces, but they got to be better, or they got to progress, which not to say they can't, but if you could get a splash impact guy or two, that would really come in handy. And again, I think this game will be very valuable for Mike Elko and the Aggies moving forward, just in terms of, hey, what did we learn about ourselves in this game? We learned we could go down 21-0 on the road in one of the craziest hostile environments you've seen in terms of playing a team in desperation mode, and you can battle all the way back to not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 overtimes, and a drop away from we're still playing, going to 5 overtimes. So it's just weird though, man. Like, guys and gals, like, as devastating of a loss as it felt, you step back and you're like, okay, that sucked, but still win the SEC. It's still open to you. That path is still open to you. So now I'll say this, looking ahead to Texas. Actually, before I do that, I just want to say this because I tweeted this during the triple overtimes before we knew the result. I think it is an injustice and a cruel irony that we decide games in this sport based off alternating 2-point conversions at any point. I think that is so ridiculous. And the irony is A&M's win over LSU basically spearheaded them changing the rule. I could think of probably dozens of ways to end a football game before we get to that point. And I think the 2-point conversion thing is just to say that is like a representative way to decide who gets a win, I think is ridiculous. It is what it is. There's no changing it, but I've always felt that way, and it sucks for A&M tonight. Now, looking ahead to Texas, and not really breaking down the game specifically, but just in general, where this team's at. Texas did not, last couple weeks, has not really overly impressed me. Now, I know they got talent, and I tweeted at one point the way, like, that Quinn Ewers is not going to beat A&M. The way he was playing at times, dropping snaps and stuff. I do think there's a chance A&M, I think there's a good chance A&M wins that game next week. College game day be in town, that Kyle Field will be rocking just as much, if not more. But you got to clean up the secondary. Not only the busted coverages, that happened like the one time on the ball, the first ball to Cam Coleman. Well, I guess both the Cam Coleman touchdowns, and then Lambert Smith busted loose out of them after the missed tackle. But the tackling in the secondary, I feel like the push on the D line in the run game is a little suspect at times. As good as they can be rushing the passer, they're just sometimes either even rushing the passer, like gap integrity seems a little sus at times to me. Clean that up, force Texas to have to do all those quick little bullet throws to the outside and nickel and dime their way down the field every single time for every single score. I would dare them to do that, just because the likelihood that you're going to be able to execute at that level of efficiency in Kyle Field with that front four putting a target on Quinn Ewers, knowing what they have in the backfield or don't have in the backfield, I like those odds. So keep everything in front of you. Make them have to really grind out their drives. And I think the Aggies stand a good chance. And then offensively, not even Texas specific, but just you need to see better accuracy on those deep shots and those intermediate shots. There was the drive, again, I talked about it, where they had Noah Thomas for like a 30-yard gain and missed him. The interception just overthrew him. I think there was a dropped conversion because threw a missile at the receiver and dropped it. Those are the kind of things to clean up. And if you can get the consistent quarterback play in terms of passing and then factor in what we know they can do with the run game, I think that's a pretty solid offense. But right now it's just when one's moving, the other's a little bit off and vice versa. So got to fix that. But I think they've got as good a chance as anybody to beat Texas. I think this year in general, anybody's got as good of a chance to beat anybody. I do think we'll probably get to the point where in college football in the playoff, I think we need it. But we're going to get to a point where we have some sort of objective standard or path to a postseason for big-time college football. Because I understand there's subjectivity in literally every other NCAA field in terms of selection committees, this and that, seeding. But college football is its own entity. Literally, it's its own entity. The college football playoff is not, the NCAA's deal. So I think we're going to have to get to a point where we have objective standings where you don't have to guess as to who's in, who's out. If this or this happens, you're just going to know. But that's maybe a conversation for a later day. But it's again, I come back to, I'll wrap it up here in just a little bit. By the way, if you like this, subscribe to the channel, help us out. We're trying to get coverage, not just of these reacts podcasts, but on the ground reporting, feature packages. We'll have some of that coming up for the Texas game, but help us out if you can, to help us be able to do that. It's really tough in the independent space to do that without the support of viewers like you, as they say. That's my little PBS pitch. But again, it's a weird range of emotions because you come down from the disappointment and the anguish for the players, really, and then you remember, by the grace of God, they're somehow still in it. They're somehow still in it. I almost can't believe that as much as I can't believe how that game ended. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up there. A&M loses 43-41 at Auburn at Jordan-Hare. They stormed the field, which that fine will go to the NIL fund for Texas A&M. So that's good news. And maybe they could get a big-time receiver, big-time corner out of the transfer portal with that, or another big-time pass rusher to replace some of the guys for next year. But until next time, try to hop on here at some point tomorrow with maybe some post-game reaction from Mike Elko as we see some of that. Ben Peck here, though, on the All In Aggies YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to let us know what you think about the game, your takeaways. And if you're watching this because you hate A&M, enjoy it. But listen, big game next week, and we'll be there to let you know about it every step of the way. See y'all.
All In Sports Network. We love sports.